In this issue, you will uncover the mystery: why our own cities seem like sets constructed for someone else. We will show the frightening underbelly of colossal halls and entrances, where a person feels like just a temporary tenant amidst monstrous scales. You will confront stubborn facts about the stone masonry that keeps silent about fallen empires, and see how official science sweeps the traces of the catastrophe that reshaped the planet's face. You will be shocked by testimonies about a race of giants, strange architectural codes, and mysterious photographs of excavations that resemble a cheap spectacle. But the main intrigue is how we ended up in a foreign world, and who it was originally intended for. Press the subscribe button to not miss fresh revelations. We are beginning a dive into what will make you look at old architecture with completely different eyes. Enter any historical object in your city, whether it is an old station, a bank, a theater, or a museum that has turned 100 years old. Freeze at the threshold and carefully examine the doors. Do not rush inside. Just realize this scale. The leaves rise up 5, 6, or even 7 meters. An ordinary adult man seems like an unsuspecting child against such a portal. The door handles are so high that it is barely possible to reach them, even when standing on tiptoes. And the giant hinges are clearly designed for weight that far exceeds that of a regular wooden leaf. Now raise your head. The windows of the second tier start where modern houses have already finished the first floor. Their sills hover 3 to 4 meters above the pavement. To simply peek outside, a person would need a tall ladder. The openings themselves are so colossal that they resemble not windows of living rooms, but light wells of gigantic shops. The panes in them, if the originals survived, are each the size of a human height. Step over the threshold, and you will fall into an abyss of space. The ceilings disappear somewhere in the heights, creating a feeling of an endless sky above your head. 10-15 meters to the vaults is the norm for such places. In these chambers, echoes linger for seconds. The sound reverberates, as if you are in a temple rather than a government institution. The staircases are frightfully wide. 3 horses could turn here. The steps, however, are treacherously high. Walking on them is difficult, and you have to strain your legs each time you lift your body. The columns that support the vaults cannot be embraced even by 3 people. Their thickness exceeds 2 meters, and their height weighs on the psyche, surpassing the limits of human perception. In the presence of such support, you feel not just small, but as if you have entered a world tailored for a completely different biomechanics. For those who are much more powerful than us. Of course, all this can be attributed to the whims of the architects, to the pursuit of pomp and grandeur. This is how historians justify this gigantism. They say the imperial style required suppression. Power had to dominate through stone. A person was to feel their insignificance before the machinery of the state. It sounds persuasive. But this version only works as long as we talk about a couple of buildings in the capital. The monarch's palace, the main cathedral, the central station. There, the pomp is understandable. But when this architectural gigantomania is stamped in hundreds of cities, in thousands of ordinary constructions, in county banks and post offices, the official theory starts to crack. Look at the courthouse in a remote province. Why are there 12-meter ceilings? Who was the local judge planning to impress? Or take the residential building for ordinary citizens. Why is the grand staircase designed with such a reserve, as if giants were supposed to walk on it? Even warehouses and factories of that era are striking with this irrational use of space.
Look at archival photographs of interiors from the late 19th century. People in these halls look superfluous. They do not inhabit the space, they are drowning in it. The furniture of that time seems toy-like against the walls. Tables, cabinets, chairs have familiar sizes, and it is clear they were brought in later, trying somehow to fill this echoing emptiness. This dissonance is jarring when you compare the old with the new construction. Current engineers save every centimeter. Ceilings, 3 meters high. Doors, strictly for people. Windows, at eye level. Everything is ergonomic. Everything is to scale. Every square meter must bring in money, especially in a cramped city. And now, mentally return to those halls. Imagine how many resources, stone and sweat went into making walls twice as high as needed. How much excess rock had to be mined, hewn, and laid. What problems such a height created. Gigantic scaffolds and powerful cranes were needed. And all this for what? For abstract grandeur in every godforsaken town? Common sense protests. The economics of such construction are absurd. But the buildings stand. Their legions across the world all scream one thing. They were not built for us, not for our height, and not for our tasks. These volumes were originally created for other masters. Architects stubbornly insist. This is the style of the era, a cultural code. But what if we look broader? What if this is not hundreds of disconnected projects, but a unified network across all continents? What if this infamous style was not a choice, but a strict technical necessity? What if all these structures are part of a global system set in motion long before people of our height timidly entered these doors? The anomaly becomes glaring as soon as one begins to move across the map. Buy a one-way ticket to South America. Stand in the center of Buenos Aires. Before you unfolds a panorama of monumental style. Heavy columns support cornices, entwined with complex moldings. Facades are cut with arched openings, as if made by a copyist. Balconies with cast iron repeat the same pattern. All of this looks like a product of one specific architectural school. Now make a leap to the other side of the world. Kiev, the heart of Ukraine. The same columns, the same arches, the same moldings. There are almost no differences, as if the builders worked from the same blueprints, only slightly adjusting them on site. Yet between these points are 10,000 kilometers, different gods, different languages, and completely different climatic zones. The next point is Pittsburgh, the coal basin of America. Here, among smoking chimneys and mines, the same palaces rise. Banks with twin porticos, train stations with recognizable vaults, administrative buildings with unchanging rows of columns. As if someone took a piece of a European capital and teleported it to an American industrial area. Frankfurt, the financial hub of Germany. Melbourne on the Australian coast. Vladivostok by the Pacific Ocean. Cape Town at the edge of Africa. Everywhere one architectural language. Everywhere buildings that could be swapped without anyone batting an eye. History textbooks feed us the tale of cultural exchange. Supposedly, European architects traveled the world, spreading knowledge. Colonizers stamped out copies of their capitals, and local masters obediently learned and copied. It sounds smooth until you start counting. How many armies of architects were needed to build the entire planet with identical clones,
in just a few decades of the 19th century? Hundreds? Thousands? Where did these legions of specialists come from in an age when traveling across the ocean took months and cost a fortune? And most importantly, why such strict unification? Living architecture always bends to conditions. In heat, thick walls and narrow loopholes are erected to escape the sun. In cold, structures huddle close to the ground, conserving warmth with low ceilings. Where it is damp, ventilation is needed. Where it is dry, water collection. But these stone monsters spit on the climate. In the tropical heat of Buenos Aires, those same giant windows and ceilings as in the frosty Vladivostok. In the arid Cape Town, the same project as in the rainy Melbourne. As if the designers did not care at all about where on the globe their creation would stand. The uniformity of technologies looks even more suspicious. Brickwork is the same everywhere. Blocks are fitted with jewel-like precision, without a drop of mortar. Foundations go to the same depth. Load-bearing nodes are calculated according to a single scheme. How is that possible with isolated development? Each culture should have invented its own bicycle, its own methods of stone processing, its own engineering. But instead of a colorful variety, we see total identity. Look closely at the ornaments on the facades. From Argentina to Russia, the same motifs. Plant patterns of strict design. Geometry of a given shape. Sculptures with recognizable faces. This is not just similar, it is practically a photocopy, as if cut from the same stencils. It can be allowed that masters peeked at each other's sketchbooks, but how to explain the accuracy of copying in the pre-photographic age? Try to describe a complex curl in words so that a person on another continent reproduces it with millimeter precision. That's nonsense. Symbolism is also universal. Lions at the entrance, eagles on roofs, mythical creatures holding cornices. These images are glaring to cultures that theoretically never crossed paths. Southern Indians, Russian peasants, African tribes, all live under the watch of the same stone guardians. Coincidence? How many times must it coincide to become a pattern? 10 similar houses, a coincidence. 100, suspicious. But when the count goes into the thousands, and all are made according to a single plan, to speak of coincidence would mean to admit idiocy. These objects were clearly created within one system, unified not in the sense of fashion, but in the sense of a literal global project, as if there existed a certain center from which not just ideas were sent out, but ready-made turnkey solutions. Blueprints, calculations, technologies were distributed across the planet in a stream, ignoring state borders and oceans. But who could manage such a global project? What force had the power to synchronize construction on all continents at once? And why did these buildings, despite their grandeur, seem so alien to their inhabitants? Perhaps the key lies not in the moldings on the facades, but in the very structure of these behemoths, in their hidden function that official references remain silent about. To grasp the true functionality of these colossi, step into any ancient cathedral, but for a second, turn off your faith and switch on your engineering mindset. What is actually before you? A giant dome covering the central nave. Its geometry is not aesthetics, but pure physics, an ideal instrument for focusing sound waves. A whisper at the altar is heard beneath the vaults, while a word spoken at the center
resonates, amplifies, and fills the entire space. This acoustics is not care for the congregation. Modern temples live well with microphones, but ancient cathedrals worked with sound as a physical quantity. The dome is a resonator. It collects and concentrates vibration. Notice, many domes are clad in metal, copper, gilded leaf, lead. This is a screen. This is a reflector. This is a conductor. Lift your eyes even higher. A spire piercing the sky for dozens of meters. We are told, it is a symbol of the desire for God. But look at the construction. A sharp metal rod, sectional, conductive. At the top, a complex structure called a cross, but which looks like a multi-beam antenna. This is not decoration, and it is not a lightning rod whose task is to draw a charge into the ground. The task of this needle is to collect static from the atmosphere. The spire above the resonant dome, air of a certain density inside. This is a scheme for interacting with atmospheric electricity. Look at old crosses, not replicas. There are a lot of trusses, spheres at the ends, complex geometric shapes. This is a classic configuration of a receiver tuned to a wide range of frequencies. Each beam catches its wave. Return to the hall and look at the rose windows. These are not just beautiful bits of glass. This is complex geometry, strict patterns, spectral decomposition of light. The stained glass works as a filter, modulating the frequency of the light flow. Sound, light, static. The building operates on all kinds of energy. But the most important thing is hidden below. Most cathedrals stand on water veins or have underground reservoirs. Water is a conductor, a heat accumulator, a resonator. A foundation submerged in an aquifer serves as grounding and a battery at the same time. Bring the system together. The spire draws a charge from the sky. The dome accelerates resonance. Water stabilizes and accumulates. The stained glass tunes the frequency. The cathedral is not a church. It is a giant converter drawing energy directly from the environment. Why? Look at us today. We pay for every kilowatt that crawls through wires from smoldering stations. Energy is a commodity. Now imagine a world where electricity is dispersed in the air, free, where every cathedral is a hub distributing the field to the entire area, without wires, without fuel, without meters. Therefore, it was initially empty inside. Benches, icons, altars, all this was brought in later, when technologies were forgotten and the box was adapted for worship. Originally, these were empty technical halls with ionized air, where a person simply charged with vital energy while being inside the field. An hour in such a place, and you emerged renewed. This scheme operated globally. Thousands of such stations covered the planet with a single network. They were clones because they performed one function. Global architectural identity is not plagiarism, but a standard. Just as modern nuclear power plants look alike in any country, these energy temples were constructed according to a single standard. But if this network really existed, if it provided civilization with free energy, the main question arises: why was the switch turned off? What happened that caused the stations to fall silent, turning them into museums and places of worship? And where did the engineers who built and maintained them disappear? The answer lies literally beneath our feet. Walk through the old center and look at the ground level. The answer lies literally beneath the soles of your shoes. Stroll through the historical center and lower your gaze. The modern paving is meters above the actual foundation of the buildings. Entrances often lead down into pits. What is now called the basement or the semi-basement was originally a full-fledged first floor. And this cannot be hidden. Look at the windows of these basements. They are designed as lavishly as the upper floors, with trims, cornices, sometimes even with balcony railings. What architect in their right mind would decorate a basement window that looks into the ground? There is zero logic here, unless one acknowledges the obvious. These windows were cut to look out onto the street, not into a wall of earth. Sometimes the grand entrance with columns and stucco is sunk into the ground up to the waist. To get inside, you have to descend handmade steps. And inside, the ceilings are the same 10 to 12 meters high. Why does the basement need such height? Official science labels this as cultural layer. Supposedly, garbage, manure, and dust accumulated for centuries, raising the ground level. It sounds reasonable until you take a calculator.
In city centers, this layer reaches 3 to 5 meters. Archaeologists say 1 meter accumulates over 1,000 years. Therefore, the city should be 5,000 years old. But according to documents, it is at most 300. The numbers do not add up. Moreover, garbage accumulates in piles, unevenly. Yet here we see a smooth blanket of soil covering the city as a whole. This is not slow accumulation. This is an instantaneous event, a catastrophe. The archives contain hints of what happened. Mud flows, liquid earth, covering cities in a wave. Researchers call it a mud flood. The cause? A cosmic impact, a shift in the crust. It does not matter. The outcome is what matters. Global civilization collapsed. Cities sank in the soil. The connections in the energy network were severed. Imagine, the power plant is intact, but all entrances are blocked by clay. Communications are cut off. It cannot be restarted. This is exactly what happened to the generator temples. They remained standing, but became useless boxes. The catastrophe can be dated to photographs from the mid-19th century. They show people digging out buildings. They are not building, but rather clearing debris. This means everything happened somewhere at the end of the 18th to the beginning of the 19th century. It was then that a strange technological regression occurred. Electric motors disappeared. Horses returned. The world plunged into darkness to reinvent electricity half a century later, but already wired and paid for. The cities stood empty and buried. Someone had to become the new owner. Someone inhabited these halls, not understanding their essence, invented new functions for them, and rewrote history to fit their narrative. To legitimize the takeover, the new owners needed a legend. They needed to prove that they built these palaces. Thus appeared the construction photographs. The archives are packed with images where men in robes pose against walls. But take a closer look. In all the photos, the finale. The building is already standing. The walls exist. The roof is there. Fragile wooden scaffolding is attached to the facade, on which workers dangle with buckets of paint. They are plastering, painting, smearing. Where are the photos of the foundation pit? Where is the foundation? How did they haul multi-ton blocks? Where are the cranes? This is missing. There are no photos of quarries, no logistics. Instead, there is a theater. People are not working, they are posing.
They are frozen, staring at the camera. The tools in their hands look like props. The scaffolding of sticks and boards would not hold even one stone block, let alone build a cathedral. This is a decoration. Especially amusing are the photos from world expositions. We are told, palaces made of plaster and sticks were built in a couple of months and then demolished. But in the pictures, stone, steel, domes. Such a structure cannot be built in a summer. And then these complexes were destroyed to hide the traces. The real picture is simple. The organizers found an abandoned ancient complex, made cosmetic repairs, this is what is captured in the photos, held an exhibition, and then blew up or abandoned the site to erase the memory of the technologies of the past. These photos are an alibi, a staging for posterity, a spectacle for us to believe that the peasants with chisels erected architectural masterpieces. This is a grand forgery designed to convince us that we are the creators, not looters on the ruins of titans. If we muster the courage to acknowledge the obvious, that in the mid-19th century, these architectural behemoths simply could not have been built with the technologies we are taught in school, we will inevitably come to a frightening conclusion. They were erected by someone else. Someone who lived here long before us. Someone whose level of mental and technical development we today cannot fully comprehend. The total frightening similarity of architecture across all continents screams just one thing. This entire global landscape had a single author. These are the traces of one powerful civilization that covered the entire globe with its technological dome. This is not a story of different countries that were peeking at each other's styles and copying capitals. This is a trace of a monolithic, planetary system that operated absolutely synchronously, whether it was Europe, America, or Asia. Remember the facts that we discussed. Identical proportions of buildings down to the centimeter from Buenos Aires to St. Petersburg, from Chicago to Siberia. The same complex engineering nodes, dome resonators, metal spire antennas, endless colonnades. The same symbols, lions, griffins, eagles, shells, sit in the same places on the facades, as if marking the equipment. This is not a cultural code or a tribute to fashion. This is a strict industrial standard, as if there existed a single design bureau sending approved blueprints and standards to every point on the planet instantly. The technological unity of execution is simply deadly for the official narrative. The stone masonry is the same everywhere. Granite and basalt blocks are fitted together without mortar with micron precision, so that not even a razor blade can fit between them. Polygonal masonry, work with weights of hundreds of tons, the most complex stone selection, all done according to a single methodology. This is only possible with a common engineering school, a unified system of measures and weights, and most importantly, standardized high-precision tools of which we know nothing and whose traces we do not find in museums. A global energy network connected these objects into one living organism. Cathedrals and palaces were not places of worship or habitation, but nodes, routers of this system. They captured, pumped, transformed, and distributed energy. To function such a scheme required absolute, perfect synchronization. All elements of the chain had to resonate in unison at the same frequency. The slightest malfunction in Australia could resonate in Europe. This is a level of reality control to which we still have much to grow. Just imagine a civilization capable of that. They understood the physics of matter better than our academics. They harnessed free energy directly from the ether, controlled resonance, and used atmospheric electricity as we use Wi-Fi. They moved multi-ton granite blocks with the same ease with which we today handle foam bricks. For them, stone was like plasticine, and sound was a tool of creation. The scale of their construction is truly frightening. It's not tens, it's thousands of objects. Entire cities designed and erected at once, turnkey, as unified logistical and energy schemes. Infrastructure without borders. For them, the concepts of our state and foreign territory did not exist. The whole world was their home, and they arranged it with a grandeur beyond our comprehension. But this civilization disappeared. Something terrible happened. A global catastrophe wiped it from the face of the earth, leaving us only time-worn stone skeletons. The network collapsed. Technologies were instantly forgotten or destroyed. Cities were buried under many meters of clay and soil. And upon these ruins, into this post-apocalypse, new inhabitants came. Us, people who had no idea what they had found. Survivors, savage, lost their memories. For us, these technical hangars became temples because we forgot how to understand physics and began to believe in miracles. We turned power stations into churches. Control panels and technical cabinets became altars and iconostases. We started to worship a cargo cult, imitating the actions of the gods without understanding their essence. We are not the direct descendants of those builders. We are too different. We are smaller, weaker, more primitive. We had neither the knowledge nor the power, nor, most importantly, the physical growth to fully inhabit these volumes. We settled in someone else's palaces like children who climbed into the cockpit of an abandoned airliner. We pull on the levers, turn the yoke, press the buttons, but the plane does not take off. We simply live in the fuselage, build a fire in the cabin, and pray to the dashboard. Where did we even come from? Who were these settlers who occupied the empty, dirt-covered cities in the early 19th century? Why do we physiologically differ so greatly from those for whom these cities were built? Perhaps the answer is far scarier than it seems at first glance. A replacement occurred. Not a gradual evolution, but a sudden resettlement of the freed living space by an entirely different biological species. A species that was either bred or came from outside to fill the void. Look closely at the faces of people in the oldest daguerreotypes and photographs. Even the people of the mid-19th century look different from us. A different skull shape, a different gaze, a different positioning of the eyes. As if it were a transitional race, not yet entirely like us today, but already infinitely distant from those who built these walls. And now recall the legends about giants erased from textbooks. Remember Patagonia, the land of giants. Travelers have described encounters for centuries with people who looked down on Europeans as children. If we assume that the builders of the antediluvian world were 3 to 4 meters tall, everything instantly falls into place. A 7-meter door for them is not ostentatious, but simply a convenient passage so as not to stoop. The windows on the second floor are just at the level of their eyes to see the street. Giant steps are comfortable for their stride. 15-meter ceilings do not press down, but provide the necessary volume of air. This architecture gains ergonomic meaning only at the height of a giant, but the giants are gone. Or they were removed. The catastrophe of the 18th to 19th centuries cleared the territory to zero. And we came, small, weak, forgetting everything, with a short lifespan. We excavated the entrances, adapted the majestic ruins to our miserable lives, inserted wooden partitions to keep warm in the huge halls, called it classicism or empire, and began to live. The new owners did not build these cities. They developed and appropriated them.
Those strange, theatrical photographs of construction that historians throw at us are a fixation of looting and repair, not creation. People in bast shoes performed vigorous activity against the backdrop of already completed, majestic walls to legitimize their ownership. They needed to create an illusion of continuity, so that we, their descendants, would firmly believe our great-grandfathers built this with chisels and hammers, and not some mythical titans of antiquity. Why is this grand deception necessary? Because the truth is too inconvenient and dangerous. To admit that we live on the ruins of a more developed, superior race means to sign in our own insignificance and secondariness. It is much more pleasant for self-esteem to compose a fairy tale about great stonemasons who transported granite monoliths on horseback. To rewrite history, to extend the chronology by 1,000 years, to fill museums with fake shards and fake tools. The system of lies is perfectly constructed. It is airtight. But the evidence has not gone anywhere. They scream if one knows how to listen. The buried first floors all over the world cry out about a mud flood. The giant doors laugh at our small stature. The single, ancient style across the earth breaks official geography and the history of nations' development. All this forms a frightening picture of the world, where we are not the masters of the planet. We are tenants, illegally occupying elite housing after the forcible eviction of the rightful owners.
We are heirs who forged a will to possess what we are incapable of creating. The greatness of old cities is not our merit. It is a frozen echo of someone else's incredible power. Every giant portal, every flawless column reminds us, order was here. Order, subordinated to different laws of physics, logic, and spirit. These buildings evoke subconscious anxiety in us because our genetic memory feels, this is not our home. We walk through these echoing halls as if in a trance, accepting the sweet lie of tour guides as truth. We were sold a convenient version of imperial style so that we wouldn't ask extra questions. But why is this style the same everywhere, from Australia to Canada? There is no answer because real history vanished along with the owners of this world. There is not a drop of desire to please us in this architecture. It is cold, majestic, and indifferent to the little man. Greatness here is not decor, but dry functionality, a technical code, the keys to which we have lost. And as long as these walls stand, they will remain an eternal, silent reproach. Are we really just accidental passers-by, parasitizing on the bones of vanished gods? Be sure to subscribe to the channel, like, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next video. We will continue to dig, look for inconsistencies, uncover archives, and ask those uncomfortable questions that make official historians' eyes twitch. The truth is somewhere nearby. It is hidden in plain sight, and we will definitely find it.